Hi, my name is Jake. I'm 38 years old. My wife, Sarah, is 36, and I never thought I'd have to write something like this about us. But here I am, ready to spill everything in detail, to confess, so to speak, to tell you a story filled with betrayal and revenge. But first, let's rewind a few weeks so you can experience everything just like I did. Okay, so picture this, me humming some early 90s Nirvana because, let's be honest, peak music era. Wrestling a suitcase into the trunk of my Subaru. I'm feeling, dare I say it, smug. Smug because I've pulled off a surprise weekend getaway for Sarah. Cozy cabin in the Poconos, hiking trails. She's always wanted to try that new mindful hiking thing. Maybe even a little stargazing, weather permitting. I even managed to snag a reservation at that trendy farm-to-table place she's been drooling over in Bon Appetit. I'm thinking, Jake, you are nailing this husband thing. Sarah and we've been, I don't know, a little off lately. Nothing major, just a vibe. Like the air conditioning is on too high in the relationship, you know? I've been putting in some serious overtime at my software engineering gig. Coding never sleeps, apparently. And she's been swamped with that new promotion at the ad agency. We're both stressed, I get it. I figured a weekend in nature, unplugged, would be the perfect reset button. Like hitting Control plus Alt plus Delete on our relationship's metaphorical computer. We met at a Dave Matthews Band concert. Can you believe it? She was wearing a Crash Into Me t-shirt. Ironic? I know. Given well, you'll see. I was rocking the classic band tee and slightly too long hair look. We bonded over our mutual love of DMB, back when they were actually good, don't me, and cheesy pizza. Fast forward 10 years, a mortgage, and a golden retriever named Gus later, and here we are. Or were we? Anyway, back to the surprise. I'm packing the essentials. Hiking boots, my lucky flannel shirt, don't judge. A bottle of that fancy organic bug spray Sarah insists on, and a couple of craft beers I borrowed from my buddy Mark. Mark's a good dude, always up for a laugh. We've been friends since college. We're like two peas in a pod, or at least I thought we were. I was just zipping up the suitcase when I heard Sarah on the phone in the living room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, honest. But her voice, it was different. Softer, almost conspiratorial. And then I heard it. Just a few words, really? But they hit me like a punch to the gut. Okay. So I'm frozen there. Suitcase half-zipped. Nirvana abruptly silenced in my head. It's like someone hit the pause button on my happy little surprise planning montage. Sarah's voice, usually bright and bubbly, is low and hushed. I strain to hear, heart pounding like I'm back in boot camp doing those surprise midnight drills. Yes, him. No, later. That's all I catch. Just fragments, whispered like forbidden secrets. But those fragments are enough to send a shiver down my spine. My mind is racing, trying to make sense of it. Him? Who the heck is him? And what are they doing later? My first instinct is to barge in there, demand answers. But years of military training kick in. Observe, assess, react. My drill sergeant's voice echoes in my head. I take a deep breath, trying to regain control. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe she's just planning a surprise party for me. Though my birthday was like 6 months ago. Maybe him is her brother, and later refers to some innocent family gathering. Yeah, that's it. Totally innocent. But deep down, a knot of dread is forming in my stomach. It's that gut feeling you get, the one that tells you something's not right, even if you can't explain why. It's like that time in the desert when, well, let's just say my instincts have saved my bacon more than once. I retreat to the bedroom, closing the door softly behind me. I lean against the cool wood, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I remember my grandfather, a man of few words but infinite wisdom, once told me, Jake, sometimes the quietest waters run the deepest. He was talking about fishing, but it applies here, doesn't it? Sarah, my sweet, seemingly innocent Sarah, could she be hiding something? I paced the bedroom, the worn floorboards creaking beneath my feet. My mind is a battlefield, thoughts clashing like opposing forces. On one side, logic and reason. Sarah wouldn't cheat. She loves me. We have a good life. On the other side, that nagging suspicion, fueled by those whispered words and a growing sense of unease. I think back to that stupid fight we had last week. It was over something ridiculous. A misplaced Tupperware container. Seriously, a Tupperware container. But it escalated and fast. Sarah got so angry, way out of proportion to the situation. At the time, I chalked it up to stress, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe the fight wasn't about the Tupperware at all. Maybe it was about guilt. Maybe she was projecting, taking her frustration out on me. Maybe, no, I can't jump to conclusions. I need more information. I need evidence. Improvise, adapt, overcome. My drill instructor's voice echoes in my head. It was our mantra in the Marines, the key to surviving any situation. And right now, I feel like I'm in a war zone, fighting for my marriage. But how do I gather intel? I'm a software engineer, not a private investigator. I can barely operate the washing machine without causing a domestic disaster, let alone conduct a covert surveillance operation. I glance at my laptop, sitting innocently on the desk. A thought begins to form, a dangerous, potentially disastrous thought. But desperation, like they say, is the mother of invention. And right now, I'm feeling pretty desperate. Alright, I'll admit it. I did something I'm not proud of. Something that, in retrospect, probably wasn't my finest hour. But hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? I hacked into Sarah's social media account. There, I said it. Judge me if you will, but I needed answers. And besides, she uses that ridiculously obvious password. Our anniversary. Amateur. Okay. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but cut me some slack. I'm going through a lot here. Anyway, what I found, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. It was like stumbling upon a hidden cache of enemy weapons. A whole arsenal of incriminating evidence. Messages, photos, even voice notes. All with him. My stomach dropped like I was rappelling down a cliff face. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the digital debris of my shattered marriage. It was worse than I could have imagined. Way worse. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Like that time in boot camp when they made us eat those. Well, never mind. The point is, I felt sick. Betrayed. Violated. All those late nights at the office, all those missed dinners, all those times I put her needs before my own. For what? For this? I slammed the laptop shut, the sudden movement echoing in the silent room. I needed air. I needed to get out of there. I needed a drink. I stumbled out of the house, the crisp autumn air doing little to cool the fire raging inside me. I walked aimlessly, my feet carrying me towards the park, a familiar haven in times of stress. I needed to process, to make sense of the chaos swirling in my head. As I walked, the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. The whispered phone calls, the late nights, the unexplained absences. It all made sense now. Him wasn't her brother. It wasn't some random colleague. It was Mark, my friend, my confidant, the guy I'd shared countless beers with, the guy I'd trusted with my life, the guy who'd been sleeping with my wife. The realization hit me like a mortar shell, exploding in my chest. I felt a surge of betrayal so intense it nearly brought me to my knees. How could he? How could they? I thought about all the times I'd covered for Mark, helped him out, been there for him. I thought about all the barbecues, the game nights, the double dates, the memories now tainted with the bitter taste of deceit. Just because someone smiles and shakes your hand doesn't mean they're your friend. Mr. Orange had said in Reservoir Dogs. I'd always loved that movie, its gritty realism, its exploration of loyalty and betrayal. Now those words felt like a punch to the gut. I sank onto a park bench, the cold metal biting into my skin. I felt numb, hollowed out. The world around me seemed to blur. The sounds of children playing, dogs barking, leaves rustling, all fading into a distant hum. I was alone, utterly and completely alone. Numbness gave way to rage, a primal, all-consuming rage that pulsed through my veins like a live wire. I wanted to scream, to break something, to inflict pain. I wanted to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. My mind raced, conjuring up images of revenge. Vicious, violent fantasies played out in my head. I saw myself confronting Mark, fists flying, the satisfying crunch of bone against flesh. I saw myself, well, let's just say my imagination took me to some dark places. But even in my fury, a small voice of reason whispered in the back of my mind. Violence wasn't the answer. It wouldn't solve anything. It would only make things worse. Besides, I was better than that. I was a Marine, trained to control my emotions, to channel my anger into something constructive. I needed a plan that was cold, calculated, and utterly devastating. I thought about all those times I'd helped Mark. The time I'd covered his shift at work when his dog was sick. The time I'd loaned him money when he was short on rent. The memories fueled my anger, turning it into a burning desire for retribution. I wouldn't let them get away with this. I wouldn't let them destroy my life without consequences. I clenched my fists, feeling the raw power surging through me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The rage subsided, replaced by a chilling calm. I was a soldier again, strategizing, plotting my next move. Revenge, I realized, is a dish best served cold. And I was about to serve it ice cold. I thought about Sun Tzu's The Art of War, a book I'd read countless times during my deployments. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Sun Tzu had written. Wise words. I didn't need to resort to violence. I needed to be smarter, more cunning. I started to formulate a plan that would expose their betrayal, humiliate them, and leave them with nothing. I would use their own weapons against them, their deceit, their lies, their misplaced trust. I wouldn't stoop to their level. I wouldn't become the monster they were, but I would make them pay. I would make them regret the day they ever crossed me. I spent hours in the park, the setting sun casting long shadows across the grass. I thought about every detail, every possible outcome. I was a chess player, anticipating their moves, planning my counterattack. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, my self-respect. And I wouldn't rest until I got it. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of purpose. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was controlled, focused. I was a man on a mission. I went through the motions of my morning routine, showering, shaving, making coffee. I even managed to choke down a piece of toast, though my stomach was still churning with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Sarah was still asleep, her face peaceful in the morning light. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the messages, the photos, the lies, and the pity evaporated. I left for work, forcing a smile as I kissed her goodbye. "Have a good day," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Love you." The words felt like ash in my mouth, but I had to play the part. I had to maintain the facade of normalcy, lull them into a false sense of security. It was all part of the plan. At work, I went through the motions, coding, attending meetings, pretending to be engaged. But my mind was elsewhere, plotting, scheming, refining my strategy. I was like a duck, calm on the surface, paddling furiously beneath. I even managed to exchange a few pleasantries with Mark, who seemed oblivious to my knowledge of his betrayal. He was a good actor, I'll give him that, but I was a better one. I was playing the long game, and I was winning. Days turned into weeks. I continued my charade, playing the role of the oblivious husband while secretly gathering evidence. I was meticulous, documenting every phone call, every text message, every suspicious expense. I even installed a tracking app on Sarah's phone, a move that felt incredibly invasive but necessary. My tech skills, once a source of amusement for Sarah, "Oh, Jake, you and your gadgets," were now my greatest weapon. I felt like a digital detective, piecing together the puzzle of their betrayal. I thought about my grandfather, a man who could fix anything with a roll of duct tape and a rusty screwdriver. He taught me the value of patience, of careful observation, of thinking several steps ahead. "Life's like a game of chess, Jake," he'd say, his eyes twinkling. "You gotta anticipate your opponent's moves." And that's exactly what I was doing. I was playing chess, and I was playing to win. I started to subtly manipulate their lives, planting seeds of doubt, creating opportunities for them to slip up. I was a puppet master, pulling the strings, watching them dance to my tune. It was a risky game, but the stakes were high. My marriage, my sanity, my very sense of self. It was all on the line. And I wouldn't back down. Just when I thought I had it all figured out, just when I was ready to execute my plan, something unexpected happened. Something that threw me completely off balance. I was going through Sarah's emails. Don't judge. I was on a roll. When I stumbled upon a message from her doctor. It was a medical report, and the results were shocking. Sarah was sick. Really sick. The words blurred before my eyes as I read the diagnosis. It was one of those diseases you hear about, the kind that throws your whole world into a tailspin. The kind that makes you question everything. Suddenly, my carefully crafted plan seemed insignificant, petty even. All the anger, the hurt, the desire for revenge, it all faded in the face of this new reality. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd been working towards, it all seemed pointless now. I thought about those cheesy lines from Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you. I'd been so consumed by my own pain, my own sense of betrayal, that I'd lost sight of what really mattered. Sarah, my wife, the woman I loved, the woman who was now facing this. I sat there, staring at the screen, the doctor's words echoing in my head. It was like a bomb had gone off, shattering my world into a million pieces. Sarah sick? Couldn't be true. It wasn't fair. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, disbelief, fear, guilt. The guilt was the worst. Here I was, plotting my revenge, obsessing over her infidelity, while she was suffering. I thought about my time in the Marines, about the tough decisions I'd had to make. Life or death decisions. But this was different. This was personal. This was about the woman I loved. The woman who, despite everything, still held a piece of my heart. What was I supposed to do? Confront her? Pretend I didn't know? Focus on her illness? Forget about the betrayal? The weight of the situation pressed down on me, suffocating me. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. I needed to talk to someone, to get some advice. But who? My friends? They'd just tell me to leave her, to move on. My family? They'd be heartbroken. I was alone in this, completely and utterly alone. I couldn't keep it bottled up any longer. The weight of Sarah's diagnosis, the knowledge of her betrayal, the swirling vortex of emotions inside me. It was all too much. I had to confront her. I waited until that evening after dinner. We were in the living room, the remnants of a half-hearted attempt at a movie night scattered around us. Sarah was curled up on the couch, a book in her lap, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. Sarah, I began, my voice trembling slightly. We need to talk. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Is everything okay, Jake? No, I said, my voice growing stronger. Everything is not okay. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I know about Mark, I said, the words hanging heavy in the air. Sarah's face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I know about everything, I continued, my voice rising with each word. The messages, the phone calls, I couldn't bring myself to say it. The word affair felt too vulgar, too inadequate. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why, Sarah? Why would you do this to me? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jake, I can explain. Explain what? I shouted, my anger finally breaking through. Explain how you could betray me, lie to me, with my best friend? I paced the room, my hands clenched into fists. I thought we had something special, Sarah. I thought. My voice trailed off, choked with emotion. I felt like I was drowning, suffocating in a sea of pain and betrayal. You can't handle the truth. Jack Nicholson's voice echoed in my head. A cruel irony given the situation. Sarah sat there, tears streaming down her face, her body racked with sobs. I watched her, my anger slowly giving way to a strange mix of confusion and pity. "Jake," she finally choked out. I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," I said, my voice softer now, the rage replaced by a dull ache in my chest. "You hurt me more than you can possibly imagine." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm so sorry." She took a deep breath, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Please, just let me explain." And so she did. She told me about her fears, her insecurities, her growing sense of inadequacy. She spoke of her diagnosis, the crushing weight of it, the fear of the future. She confessed that she'd sought comfort in Mark, a shoulder to cry on, a distraction from the looming darkness. It had started innocently, she claimed, but it had quickly spiraled out of control. "He made me feel alive," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He made me forget, even if just for a little while." I listened, my mind reeling. Her words were like a punch to the gut, a gut already bruised and battered. I wanted to scream, to rage, to deny everything she was saying. But something in her eyes, a raw vulnerability I'd never seen before, stopped me. Her explanation wasn't an excuse, not by any means, but it was an explanation. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the truth is far more complicated than we ever imagine. My grandfather's words came back to me. "There are always two sides to every story, Jake. Always." Sarah's confession hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I sat there, numb, trying to process everything she'd said. Her words weren't a justification, but they offered a glimpse into her world, a world I hadn't understood, a world I hadn't even tried to understand. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in a long time. I saw the fear in her eyes, the vulnerability, the pain. I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I had vowed to spend my life with. But I also saw a stranger, a woman I didn't fully know. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep sadness. Sadness for what we had lost, for what we could have been. Sadness for the lies, the betrayal, the broken trust. I thought about my options. I could leave, walk away, start over, find someone new, someone who wouldn't betray me. It would be the easy way out, the clean break. Or I could stay, try to rebuild, try to forgive, try to heal. It would be the harder path, the one filled with uncertainty and pain. But it would also be the path of love, of commitment, of hope. I thought about Sarah's illness, the battle she was facing. Could I abandon her now, when she needed me most? Could I live with myself if I walked away? The decision weighed heavily on me, a crushing burden. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, two paths stretching out before me, each leading to a different future. I looked at Sarah, her face pale and drawn, the weight of her secret and her illness etched into every line. She was waiting, her eyes searching mine, pleading for something. Forgiveness? Understanding? I wasn't sure. The truth was, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. The world I thought I knew, the life I had built, it had all crumbled around me. But in the ruins, something new was starting to take shape. A new understanding, a new perspective, a new kind of love. I thought about all the things Sarah had said, the pain she had revealed. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me understand them. It helped me see her, not as my betrayer, but as a flawed, vulnerable human being. And then I thought about her illness, the fear, the uncertainty, the fight she was facing. Could I abandon her now, when she needed me most? Could I live with myself if I walked away? The answer, deep down, was no. I reached out and took her hand, my fingers intertwining with hers. Her grip was weak, but it tightened around mine, a silent plea for connection. "We'll get through this," I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. "We'll get through this together." It wasn't a promise of forgiveness. It wasn't a declaration of undying love. It was simply a statement of fact. We were bound together, not just by our past, but by our present, and by the uncertain future that lay ahead. I knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be pain, anger, resentment. But there would also be healing, forgiveness, and maybe, just maybe, a new beginning. We had a long road ahead of us, a road filled with challenges and uncertainties. But we would face it together. We would face it as husband and wife. And that, I realized, was the only choice I could make.